So, from a formulation sense, and I always tell people this, we can give you our timeline of formulation, but everything else is going to be dependent on you. It's going to be dependent on, what brand strategists you work with. It's going to be dependent on your marketing strategies, or maybe even you want to hire a branding agency. That's going to take time. You're going to have to get consumer evaluation, feedback. There's so many different steps in product development that speed to market could be ideal for private label.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's segment right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your show host, Megan Young Gamble, and Chief Project Officer at GLC, your packaging and project execution team. And I am joined with my lovely co host, my daughter. So you will see her on the videos. And also, you may hear her add her own commentary to the segments as well. So make sure you give her some love and show her some love with our 5-star rating in your respective platform. So for today, I'm so excited to have our feature powerhouse, Miss Cynthia Johnson, who is the CEO and founder of Cindy J Labs. Guys, when I say that, let me just give some context before I do a proper introduction of Cynthia, okay? So when I first started GLC, I was looking for strategic partners to recommend to my clients and that are complementary to my business. So as I'm looking for different cosmetic chemists and regulatory agencies, designers, logistic coordinators, etc., I came across Cynthia on Instagram and I said, oh my gosh, another dope Black female who has her own lab that is creating these proprietary formulas for her clients and being featured in some of the major retailers like JCPenney's, e-commerce, D2C brands. Like when I say she is everything, she is everything. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have Miss Cynthia Johnson, CEO and founder of Cindy J Labs, who creates exclusive proprietary formulations that are high in efficacy and also sustainable for hair care and skincare brands. I'm gonna have her introduce more about her manufacturing lab and what that process looks like as well. But ladies and gentlemen, make sure y'all give a warm welcome to my powerhouse, Cynthia. So welcome to the house.
Thank you, Megan. Thank you so much. And of course, it's always an honor to be in your presence, as always. I still had that picture when we were at Spelman last year, and we look so good.
Thank you.
Yes, no, but I really appreciate everything that you do when it comes to product packaging. I mean, you give a lot of education on product packaging, especially to my clients and potential clients too. So I really appreciate your expertise for sure.
Absolutely. And likewise, so it's really been a great partnership that we've established, for the past couple of years as well, because you deal with the formulations. Brands come to me like, do you do formulas? I do packaging. I do not, but go to Cynthia. She got you all the way covered. So it's been a great partnership and always looking forward to our continued partnership in the days and
Yeah.
years ahead as well. So let's go ahead and have you put some respect on your name and what you do. So share a little bit about yourself, Cynthia, what inspired you to create Cindy J Labs and how people can get in contact with you for the proprietary formulas.
Yeah, so first off, thank you for that warm introduction as well. Hello, everyone. My name is Cynthia Johnson. I'm the founder and CEO of Cindy J Cosmetic Labs and also the content curator of the Cosmetic Concept. And Cindy J Labs didn't just come overnight. Cindy J Labs was a vision that I had since I was 15 years old. I attended Baltimore Polytechnic Institute here in Baltimore City, Baltimore, Maryland, and I was really great in chemistry, really great in math, but I was also an athlete. I played basketball, volleyball, I was also a cheerleader for some time. And I just knew I was going overseas to play basketball, maybe even be like a Ravens cheerleader, whatever that looked like. I knew I wanted to be an athlete. But my chemistry professor came up to me and said, Cynthia, you should really think about a career in chemistry. And then in my mind, I'm thinking, well, what am I going to do with chemistry? What is that going to entail with Cynthia Johnson in the future? And he asked me, well, what are you infatuated with? What are you passionate about? And I told him I love my skin, I love my hair. I was always high, always had high self-esteem with my skin and hair. And that of course came from my mom as well. And I just knew that I had to do something with skin and hair. And then we found cosmetic chemistry. So ever since I was 15, I knew I had to be a cosmetic chemist. And then once I got introduced into business and networking and just learning different ways to become a cosmetic chemist, that's when Cindy J came about. I knew that I had to service my indie beauty brands, my smaller brands, and of course, the dream at the time was to work for big corporations. It was
Right.
supposed to be maybe Johnson and Johnson or Estee Lauder or L'Oreal, whatever that looks like. I knew I wanted to be at the top. But then that vision, of course, quickly changed when I learned that small brands are looking for cosmetic chemists, especially when it comes to proprietary information or proprietary formulations. So I took a step back and said, "Hey, let's step out on faith and start your Cindy J Labs," and that's what happened. I was able to get my Master of Science degree in cosmetic science and also my bachelor's degree in chemistry. And I utilize all of that knowledge and the hands-on knowledge to create Cindy J Labs. So our website is cindyjlabs.com, and then our Instagram is at Cindy J Labs.
Oh, wait. See, I love learning about people and how people actually evolve to where they're currently at now. So,
Mhm.
first off, kudos to you for having Cynthia J Labs since you were 15. Like, that's phenomenal. Like, you are already on the entrepreneurial track, back when you were an adolescent, to now
Mhm.
where you are today. So, I'm sure you're amazed at the evolution of where
Yeah.
you started to where you are now. And then, secondly, guys, fun fact, me and Cynthia both have a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry. And I wish when I was in college, because we down in the South, so some of the practices and tracks is not commonly mentioned, based upon your geographical area. But
Right.
looking back on my upbringing and going through college, I wish somebody would have told me about the world of packaging when I was getting my chemistry degree or cosmetic science, food science, to
Mhm.
that point. But the fact that your mentor and your professor mentioned to you
Mhm.
like, hey, you should look at chemistry, and hey, you like hair, you like skin, consider
Right.
cosmetic science. I think that's beautiful, and we need more people to bring
Yes.
more awareness to this industry, especially as Black or brown people here in America, because that's a gap, and we're creating a
Right.
lot of products for us and for everybody,
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, but there's certain things with melanated skin that really
Mhm.
needs to be really thought about and be intentional
Right.
when you're curating these formulas. So I love what
Right.
you're doing with Cindy J Labs. And guys, all of her website information for Cindy J Labs, as well as how to purchase the Cosmetic Concept, which is a planner,
Mhm.
which I love for you to talk a little bit about as well, will be down in the show notes.
Mhm.
So, the Cosmetic Concept, share a little bit about what inspired you to create this, since you do work alongside of the indie brands on the proprietary formulation side.
Yeah, I always like to say that I'm like a beauty professional, like a cosmetologist or a hairstylist, makeup artist, because I get to talk to different types of people every day. When you think about your barber, when you think about your hairstylist, they are listening to the pain points of their consumer every single day. It could be about frizziness, it could be about growth, it could be about conditioning. So for me, I was able to listen to the pain points of business entrepreneurs in the beauty space. And it was always the same thing. Okay, I have my product or I have my formula. So what do I do next? What happens next? Where are the resources? Where do I go to manufacturing? What is the cost? What does that look like? And I thought to myself, so there really isn't a guide out there. There really isn't a step-by-step journey for brand owners who are looking to go from ideation to concept and then eventually to launch. So then I thought to myself, oh, a planner would be great. I know a lot of planner girlies. At the time, I really wasn't a big planner girly, but then I started becoming more and more into planners and different types of planners. I mean, my mom, she loves Christian planners. And that, like, I know she's probably upset with me because I didn't use the last one that she gave me, but that Christian planner that I used beforehand was great. Like just learn about different Bible verses and really applying what you have learned through those Bible verses to your life. You also have your regular planners that they could just have a calendar in there, and that's really to keep you up to date with your tasks and activities or your day to day life. So I thought, okay, how can I bring the education of product development into a planner? And then that's when the cosmetic concept came about. I said I wanted to be interactive, I wanted to be engaging. So let's create some workbooks that go with that planner. So that way it's just not a calendar. We have to be intentional with this new business. But overall, the cosmetic concept is a resource based business for those same small business owners who have those additional questions, or they need the additional resources, or even strategists to help them get to the next level. So we decided to break up our product development in four different ways. We have branding, marketing, R&D, research and development, and manufacturing. So we created different strategies and custom workbooks to put into the planner, and so far it's just been amazing. I think we hit 100 printed planners sold like within the first couple of months with the cosmetic concept. And then we started to go digital. We said, well, now let's get into the digital planners, the digital workbooks. And it's just been great. We're going to be doing more when it comes to marketing as well, because we have been on not the lackadaisical side, but it has been taking a little bit of a back burner because we have been focusing on growing Cindy J. But now Cindy J has grown. Now we're going back to the cosmetic concepts and making that even better.
Oh, girl, I love it because as we both know, working with indie brands or any, regardless of scale of brand, everybody's always
Mhm.
focused on speed to market, right? And as part of speed to market approach, a lot of times with indie brands, they're like, hey, I want to launch in the next 90 days.
Right.
Or what does that time frame look like with the creation of my proprietary formula to manufacturing to packaging to branding, marketing, etc.? What does that look like? And so with that, I'm gonna ask it as a question because you mentioned it is contained within your planner. So when you work alongside of the brands, on the Cindy J Lab side, creating the formula, or also outlined in the cosmetic concept planner, time frame wise, what's the minimum time frame you recommend brands to allocate for
Yeah.
branding, marketing, R&D,
Woo!
iterations of formulas, packaging, testing, the whole 9 yards? What do you recommend?
Wow. So I have experience with people that, because at the end of the day, it's going to come down to mindset, budget, and timeline. So I've come across people that will launch within 6 to 8 months, and they already have their branding, their marketing. They have already talked with manufacturers. They're able to get that done. But then I have business owners who may take 2 years to launch a product. And that's because they have to get the branding, the marketing, and the manufacturing. So, from a formulation sense, and I always tell people this, we can give you our timeline of formulation, but everything else is going to be dependent on you. It's going to be dependent on what brand strategists you work with. It's going to be dependent on your marketing strategies, or maybe even you want to hire a branding agency. That's going to take time. You're going to have to get consumer evaluation, feedback. There's so many different steps in product development that speed to market could be ideal for private label. But for something that's custom formulated, you want to be able to take your time because this is a brand new product that's going to be entering into the market. For custom formulation, I always give my timeline or expected timeline anywhere between 6 to 8 months in a very, very perfect world. And a perfect world means that we have the ingredients needed in house. We have the containers that we will use for sampling purposes. You approve the product as soon as you get the samples. And then stability testing, which determines the shelf life of that product. Stability testing is 3 months automatic for us. So if it passes all 3 months, that's a perfect world for us. So 6 to 8 months would be that ideal, but always give yourself cushion, maybe 3 to 4 months of cushion. Because again, you have consumer evaluation that you have to do. You may approve a product, but then your target audience doesn't really like the product. So now you have to go back and we have to tweak the formula so that your target audience likes the formula. And we may have to create samples for that target audience. That could look like 20 or 30 or 40, whatever that looks like, you have to get that feedback. We also suggest that you get other types of testing while stability testing is has started. So that could look like clinical testing, That could look like the safety and efficacy testing, preservative testing. Preservative testing is a big one.
Girl.
But also, yeah, right. How well do we know? But all of these different types of testing can be done while stability testing is being done in house. So the formulation side, of course, you may see that 6 to 8 months, or you may see up to a year for formulation. But you also have to take into consideration the other parts of product development, which is why we came up with the planner. So that way you can strategize within that year. What does my branding goal look like? What does my marketing goal look like?
Yeah.
When should I reach out to a manufacturer? Because reaching out to a manufacturer, that's a whole different timeline as well. So,
Yes, ma'am. And I appreciate you for breaking it down because you answer one of my other questions too, like when is it advantageous to go private label versus
yeah,
creating your own formulations? And like we
yeah,
talked about speed to market, some brands are like, I just want to launch something within the next 90 days. Then private
hmm,
label may be advantageous for you there, but
right,
simultaneously you could be working on your own proprietary formula. Once you
mhm,
have some feedback or incorporating the feedback, looking at certain ingredients, to
yes,
incorporating your formula. So I appreciate you for giving two tracks, and
yeah,
outlining what that looks like, and also being realistic about the time frame for just formulation.
right,
Because a lot of brands I work with, may say, well, Megan, like I thought this will only take 6 to 8 months. I say, yeah, that's just for the beginning part of it.
hmm,
Look, what are your competitive analysis? What is the packaging inspiration? Where is this going to be? Where is this going to be sold to? Is this in which retailers? Because Macy's and Ulta and Sephora and J.C. Penney's all differ. So
yeah,
we have to look at the full picture too, and then that's a separate timeline. So having the cosmetic concept planner for brands to strategize what that looks like and
mhm,
understanding what's more of a realistic time frame to
yeah,
launch helps put
yeah,
things into perspective for them to be like, oh, 90 days is not feasible. That's just stability testing, like Cynthia
right,
mentioned, in house at her lab. So, brand owners, please make sure, and I think Cynthia agrees with this, please make sure that you are allocating enough time to go through the R&D process, branding, marketing, packaging selections, working with the manufacturer, external manufacturer, because that's a whole different process,
right,
to operations, logistics. It's a whole process, and there's different stage gates for each step of the process. So make sure
yeah,
you are properly strategizing, allocating
mhm,
yourself time, have the capital, because you
mhm,
need capital to get these products in here and to invest into the service providers to launch it to the marketplace. You have to have that up front and
mhm,
understand what is really feasible for you. So it's
right,
okay to
mhm,
delay. It's okay to take a little bit more time for it to be curated for what you need. So,
mhm.
Cynthia, would you agree with what I just mentioned?
I would totally agree. And one thing that stood out that you said was the packaging too. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't understand that the formulation and the packaging have to go hand in hand. You can't just add a formula to the packaging and think it's going to be okay.
Nope.
And that's something that we do as well. We do package compatibility to make sure that the formula is compatible with the packaging. I remember at my old job, oh my gosh, it was a disaster. It was a purple shampoo, kind of like your shimmering lights shampoo for
Mm-hmm.
blonde and gray and silver hair. And it was a purple shampoo, but the packaging was like a peach packaging. It was
Ooh.
very heavy in dye, very potent in that dye packaging. And when we started to do the package compatibility, it started to phase out because that purple and peach, they're going to cancel out
Yes,
real quick.
ma'am.
So it just did not. It was terrible. It looked like real gray, grayish, like a dark grayish, purple grayish color
Mm-hmm.
within after that package compatibility. So that is something that people tend to forget with the packaging. But we're here to say, as a formulation chemist and also as a packaging consultant, please, please, please do package compatibility. You have to. It's imperative.
Say it louder for the people in the back, because and I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I always preach to invest into your testing on the
Mhm.
formulation side and the packaging side, because to the example Cynthia mentioned with the peach packaging and the purple shampoo, the
Mhm.
purple, depend upon the type of ingredients and the type of materials for the packaging, that could be an adverse reaction.
Right.
Secondly, the dye in the shampoo can stain the peach packaging. Third, aesthetically, if you're looking at it on the shelf from a consumer standpoint, like Cynthia
Mhm.
mentioned, peach and purple do not actually produce the same color. It's going to be a mute point. It's going to look more gray, and it's not
Right.
going to resonate on the shelf. So it's a lot of different variables we need to consider,
Mhm.
and also looking at the preservative system. She mentioned preservative efficacy testing, You have clinical testing, depending upon the ingredients. Like it's so many. Invest into the testing and please be patient. At the end of the day, we can agree on that. So I appreciate you for sharing that. So
Mhm.
we mentioned about formulations, right? And with you being the founder and CEO of Cindy J Labs, share with
Mhm.
us why you recommend brands to consider owning or having their own proprietary formulations.
You have the technical reason why you should be owning it, and you have the ancestry reason of
Okay.
why you should be owning your formulas. I always say from an ancestry side, please, especially for Black women, own your stuff, own your formulation from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to longevity, of course, your story may be different than other stories.
Right.
You may come to the realization that you want to own this formula, but then you want to sell it later,
Mm-hmm.
or you own this formula and you want to create a legacy behind it. But starting out, own your formula so that way when you go to a manufacturer, if you go to a laboratory, or if you're going into getting investments, they want to know who is the majority owner of this formula,
Mm.
who is going to retain the rights, the intellectual property rights of this formulation, because it helps them make a decision on a, a whole bunch of different things. It could be the type of capital that you get. It could be on the type of resources that you need for that own formulation. So that's the ancestry side of it.
Okay.
From a technicality side, it really just helps you understand what's exactly going into your formulation. I've had so many horror stories from people who have went the private label route. And again, nothing wrong with private label route.
Right.
Again, like Megan said, if you're looking for that speed to market, that may work for you. But for someone who, again, is looking for that longevity, that's looking for that legacy building, you want to know what's in your formula. You want to know the breakdown, the percentages. You want to know, are there any impurities? I want to know the safety data sheets of these raw materials. What exactly is going into my formulation? Because then that'll help you later down the line. Let's say something happens where you have to go to court because there was a minor tweak that happened within your formula, or someone's hair broke out, or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
You have the documentation to back up your formulation. You don't want to get into that legal battle with the public or whatever that looks like, and you don't even have documents to support, or you don't even know what's in your formula to say, hey, to really prove your point, like say, hey, this my formula is great. So that's on the more technicality side. I do see people who even go the custom route, but then there's a line at the end that says the lab retains the ownership of the formulation. So before you sign a contract, before you put a deposit down, please understand who owns the formula at the end of the process. And for Cindy J, that's what we do up front. We let you know that you will retain 100% of the formulation. So you'll get the specifications, you'll get the agreement that says that Cindy J is transferring the intellectual property right to your brand. You'll get the specifications of the actual formula. So the ingredients percentage, the ingredient breakdown, the process, the stability reports, any other type of testing reports. And also, again, the material safety data sheets. That is super, super important.
Ooh wee! I like how you broke down the ancestral part versus the technical part, and I'm gonna hit on the technical part of it, especially
Mhm.
here at my practice, because regulatory is really big for us from a compliance standpoint, and Cynthia can attest to this as well. Like her lab is about compliance, we are as well at GLC, and so when I have my regulatory specialists evaluate the ingredients, like Cynthia
Mhm.
mentioned, looking at the percentage composition or the theoretical
Yep.
composition,
Mhm.
looking at, what are the safety data sheets? Because there's
Right.
certain things we now have to include on the packaging before it
Mhm.
goes to print, such as fragrances, such as allergens. We have MOCRA in place. We now have, other requirements that are in place to make sure that your product labels and the information on there is compliant. So
Client.
when I say we operate on the same accord, even though our scope is different, we're all
Mhm.
about compliance and consistency. So the technical part of it that she mentioned, those are some of the same things that we require up front.
Mhm.
Especially working with our in-house regulatory specialists before we print the packaging, when we're doing the design of the packaging and looking
Yep.
at your artwork, the copy, all of those details. We're getting clearance and information from the cosmetic chemist, requesting that documentation from you all as the brands before we execute anything. If you're
Right.
not able to provide it, unfortunately, we say you're gonna have to come back to us when you are able to obtain that documentation. So that's the
Yeah.
first thing. But second thing you really mentioned that's really gold and really a differentiator of your lab with other labs is you transfer 100% of the rights to the brand owners. And that
Right.
is gold because you don't see that, especially now with the current environment changing. We're
Yeah.
seeing some labs retain that ownership or they give brands the lesser percentage of
Right.
ownership. So, guys, if you want to have 100% ownership of your formula, just go ahead and hit up Cynthia and her lab, and her
Yeah.
team will get you all the way together. You're already
Yeah.
hearing about her process and the planners that she offers to you all as well.
Mhm.
Like it's just really advantageous for you all to retain ownership of your formula. Okay.
Yes.
And so, speaking of ownership, I have to ask you, Cynthia, what are your
Mhm.
thoughts on patenting a formula?
Woo! You hitting those waters there, Megan.
I mean, I just got to throw it out there. So, what's your thought?
So I completely forgot to mention this in the beginning of my introduction. I am the co-founder of a nonprofit organization called Black Women in Cosmetic Chemistry. And we have been putting together events and webinars. We have our big Suppliers Day mixer that is going to happen in New York. I'm super excited for that. But we have an event coming up in a couple of weeks called Patent Peace of Mind. And it's the speaker is really going to talk about the patents of cosmetic innovations. And I'm very curious to hear more about what his ideas are when it comes to patents in the cosmetic industry. Now, when it comes to like actual techniques or regimens or devices, that makes sense for me for a patent, for a patent to go through. But when it comes to an actual formulation, and not so much raw material, guys, if you're thinking about creating like this brand new raw material that came from the deep jungle of Liberia or something, I don't know, I'm just putting that out there. I don't know if there's a jungle in Liberia, but just putting it out there, there's something that is very unique to the market and it has not been formulated before as far as a raw material. To me, that makes sense to patent. I believe Beyonce is going through her patent with her keratin biotechnology. So to me, that makes sense. That works. But for an actual formulation where you have your full ingredient list, let's say it's a shampoo. Let's say someone comes to me and says, "Hey, I want to formulate a shampoo." I transfer the property rights over to her after we have done the product development process. And now she wants to patent the shampoo. For me, I'm going to suggest that she doesn't, not as a legal counselor, because she should still reach out to a legal counselor, but I'm just going to give my perspective on patents when it comes to formulas. If you do patent a formula, let's say it's just a shampoo, they have the ingredient list, everything is great, no one can use this formula, quote unquote. Someone else can look at this formula on the shelf and it sees that it's doing great. It's doing amazing on the shelf. Everyone loves it. They now want to use that as a benchmark. And then they're going to come to someone like me who's a cosmetic chemist and say, "Hey, can you reverse engineer this product?" Absolutely, the chemist can reverse engineer it because all you need is one little tweak. Instead of using jojoba oil, let's use sunflower oil. Instead of using glycerin, let's use sorbitol. Instead of using, again, I'm getting real technical, but instead of using so many different types of ingredients that make up the product, they could use the same ingredient list and just tweak one little ingredient. And it's not considered that formula. So I always tell people be careful with patents. Make sure that you do consult with a patent counselor or legal counselor and make sure that it is of innovation, innovation when it comes to, again, maybe devices or some type of technique or regimen. We don't know what that looks like, but I can't wait to learn more about this patent process on May 22nd, by the way.
Okay.
That from Tony Olenek. He is the vice president of a supplier called Surfatec, and he's going to talk more about patents in the cosmetic industry.
Ooh, maybe look, maybe with you being a co-founder of your nonprofit, maybe you can convince
Mhm.
him to do a webinar for those of us who are not able to attend the upcoming one on May 22nd, because I
Mhm.
would love to attend just to hear. And guys, y'all know I say on the podcast, probably for every episode, I stay a student because there's so much in this industry, and based upon the different business sectors, there's so many complexities to it as well,
Right.
so people ask me, hey Meg, if I go to a manufacturer, should I patent it? I am not an attorney, and you're not about to come after my dollars and or my
Mhm.
business. And like
Yeah.
Cynthia saying, she is not legal counsel, so don't come after us. Seek legal counsel, for those respective questions. But
Yes.
I think it's something really, good to ask, because some brands like, I want to patent it and stuff.
Mhm.
But like you said, with Beyonce's Sacred line, they're able to patent their, bioactive keratin ferment,
Mhm. Mhm.
and the technology or the devices, if it's something truly innovative out there,
Right.
it may
Right.
make sense for your brand. But always seek legal counsel. We are not legal
No.
counsels, attorneys, none of that. Okay, we just
Mhm.
stick to the rivers and lakes we used to, which is formulation
Yes.
for Cynthia, packaging for me. Okay,
I love
so
that.
just saying. So we talked about, benefits of having proprietary formulas, some of the best practices with testing, what
Mhm.
your process looks like, and also how you help brands with the planner, the cosmetic concept, and
Yeah.
also with the evolution of Cindy J Labs, because you mentioned about you all's growth, and I've been
Mhm.
following your growth. And like in the past year, you started offering small batch manufacturing. So
Yeah.
walk us through what that process looks like and why you decided to offer that as another solution to indie brands.
Yeah, so that's a great question too. I would say, earlier in the podcast interview, I talked about the pain points. When as formulators, as business owners, entrepreneurs, we have to listen to the pain points of our consumers. And for me, my consumer base is my client are my clients. And I had to understand where they're coming from. Their main pain point, of course, is the minimum order quantity of manufacturers. So manufacturers may quote 5,000 units to be done at once, not stretched out for the year, but at once. There may be 10,000, there may be 50,000 units. And those are just, again, mid level to high level manufacturers. Now, understanding the pain points of my business owners, of course, kind of tapped into my emotional intelligence piece of it when it comes to a business owner. Because as a business owner, we understand we're here to make money. We have a standard cost of living as business owners, but then when you're listening to these pain points, you're like, oh, I have to figure out a way to help. I have to figure out the solution, and if it's going to take money to do it, let's do it. So I definitely tapped into that part of being an entrepreneur within the small business community. So we invested in a mixing machine that can hold 10 liters of product, that can mix 10 liters of product. And it depends on the product. When it comes to the specifications of the products, you could anything that ranges between like water thin products or like your shampoos, your gels, suspensions, things like that. Creams, lotions, deep conditioners that are on like the hot process side. We're still trying to figure those things out when it comes to machinery. But just to start off with, we said let's go ahead and create a way to have business owners have maybe like 50 units to start off with, or 100 units to start off with, maybe not the 1,000 just yet, or maybe not even the 500 just yet, but at least they get to get their feet wet. They can go to trade shows, they can send their products to investors, they can send products for, again, consumer evaluation, they can start selling online, a little bit at a time, and really gain traction on what their business is about. And when you're sitting on 1,000 units, you may get a little discouraged because it's not selling as quickly as you thought it was. I mean, I've been there before where I said, with my planners, I'm going to sell 1,000 planners within my first year. And that didn't happen. And that's okay because everything's a learning lesson. But I'm here to tell you that you do have a solution. And some manufacturers that we even partner with can do as low as 250. They can do as low as 500. And you can really create a strategic plan on how you can get these products out, how you can get those units out of the door, out of the warehouse. So with our mixer machine, like I said, we can hold up to 10 liters. And of course, the number of units is going to depend on the size of the packaging. So something that's 2 ounce, we could do as many as, let's say, 150 to 200 units because it's a small packaging. But if you're looking at like your 8 ounce, your 12 ounce, 16 ounce, like your big shampoo bottles type of containers, we can do as low as 20 to 30 at one time. And that just may be conducive for the small business owners that we talk to because they just need something small. They need to see, is this really going to work in the market?
Oh, I think that's golden because, a lot of brands are looking at, I just want to test the water to see if this is a viable option, if I'm really solving that pain point, that need or the want from my ideal customer. What
Right,
modifications do we need to make? Or, I don't have my sales strategy fully defined yet. Let me
right.
start here, as I'm working on my full marketing strategy and sales strategy and
Mhm.
advertising and PR. And guys, this is a great solution that Cynthia is offering through her lab because,
Mhm.
to that point, a lot of manufacturers are changing their policies, increasing the quantities for manufacturing, especially now with tariffs in place,
Yeah, yeah.
and the agreements are shorter, prices are higher, raw
Mhm.
materials longer, so this is a great solution. So if you're looking at testing the water, want to create your own proprietary formula, but start with smaller quantities, Cynthia's facility is great. And I already know how she works. She's going to get you together. Okay. And
Yes,
we can help support with
absolutely.
packaging. In some cases, I'll be honest, depending upon the units, we may say, here is what we recommend for you to get started. It
Mhm.
may not be your ideal print on the
Right.
packaging. Okay. Let's go
Mhm.
ahead and put it on. Yeah. We're going to go ahead and just tell it like Bernie Mac says, TI is. It may be a label applied to some stock packaging, and that is
Yeah,
okay. Be
that's
okay to
perfect.
evolve and iterate. When
Mhm.
you have more capital, once you gain that buy
Right.
in from your consumers, you know how it's being receptive in the marketplace, you have your sales strategy defined, be okay with that. Don't go
Yeah,
from 0 to 100, then you get to 100, and like you said, it's stalled. And you have
it's
all your
all
money tied up in the packaging, the formulations, the units, the inventory. Make it make
yes.
sense, guys. So, be okay, but it's a great solution. And we can give resources for the packaging for lower quantities as well, especially with
Mhm.
tariffs, because now sourcing international may not be
Ooh,
ideal with these tariffs in
right,
place.
right,
So, since we're talking
right.
about tariffs, I have to ask you, Cynthia, from a raw material perspective, when you're creating these formulas, what are you
Mhm.
seeing with the impact of tariffs on raw materials and some of the curated formulas you're creating for the brands?
Yeah, of course, the tariffs is that's always going to be a scary situation
Hmm.
for, I would say, more so for manufacturers and brands rather than cosmetic chemists. And I say that because we are the starting point.
Hmm.
So a lot of the raw materials that are coming in, of course, we'll be making changes to it, but we are constantly getting new clients. So we have to apply whatever that increase looks like to the new client. But it's
Okay.
not like we're starting over
Okay.
from a formula that we've already made. Usually it's the manufacturer and the brand owner that will get hit with that.
Okay.
We are very thankful that we work with suppliers that have communicated and we're very transparent on some of the ingredients that we're currently using in the lab as far as the whatever that percentage would look like. I did receive notice from a supplier. He sent like a nice list of ingredients that it could be 130% increase or an 8% increase. But thank goodness we don't use any of those ingredients in
Okay.
house. So that was, of course, that was great for us. But I will say for cosmetic chemists and cosmetic chemists that are listening as well, to make sure that you invest in a cosmetic software. That way you can see the difference between, this raw material price to maybe another raw material price. And that way you can go with the best solution for your client. So all in all, the tariffs really haven't had a huge impact for me, but I know it will have a huge impact as we continue to formulate new products with ingredients that we currently have in house.
Oh, I appreciate that transparency. And I would love for you to share the resources you recommend for cosmetic chemists, formulators, et cetera, to look at and invest in with the software side. So we'll love to get that from
Yes.
you after this episode. And guys, that will be linked in the show notes as well, along with
Hmm.
Cynthia's information. But in reference of tariffs, I'm glad to hear it from your perspective, as a cosmetic chemist, because on the manufacturing side, especially packaging, tariffs is a huge impact. And,
Yeah.
a lot of the indie brands and startup brands are cost conscious, and
Right.
they're like, well, I don't want all my money tied up in packaging because I'm already creating my formulas.
Hmm.
I'm investing into testing, whether it's at Cindy J Labs or external third party testing facility. I
Right.
only have this much to allocate for packaging, so
Right.
that's where I may say, okay, well, here is what we recommend, and that's where it's like, let's be okay to iterate, as you go through multiple and scaling up your quantities.
Hmm.
Okay, let's look at, some stock packaging options. Let's look at this option. Here are some cost saving opportunities here. And we've always looked at, for our suppliers, looking more domestic as well, to just be ahead of the curve. And this is something we've been looking at and evaluating probably the past 2 years instead of trying to always go international because of the lead times to get products here, and
Yeah.
things may get lost, in transit on the ocean, so we were trying to help mitigate those things now. But at the end of the day, if you're looking and analyzing, you're doing a cost analysis, and
Mhm.
we see the price of eggs, we see the price of milk, tissue, paper towels, gas, we all are feeling the impact of tariffs and more
Yes.
to come.
More
But
to
if you are investing in creating your own exclusive proprietary formula, be
come. Hmm.
intentional to do your competitive analysis, do your own cost analysis to understand what this product in the market should be for your brand, and
Right.
then backtrack to determine what are your total cost of goods. I know you have a section in your planner that outlines how to think about the budget, and we
Hmm.
have a digital product, talking about the same thing from a packaging standpoint too. So,
We
make
do
sure it makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yes, ma'am. So we want to make sure that you all, as brand owners, are set up for success, and also
Yeah.
helping you all to be profitable in your business and not have all your cash flow tied up in
Right.
inventory and all the things that are required to launch your product in the market. So,
Yes.
Cynthia, last two questions for you. You ready?
Okay. Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Cynthia is well known in the actual cosmetic science industry. She's a co-founder of her organization. She has the Cosmetic Concept planner. She has her own manufacturing facility offering solutions. So she's seen a lot of everything. And as I mentioned, she is really big about compliance and sustainability. So
Hmm.
with you at your respective labs, Cynthia, how do you incorporate sustainability into the formulations and
Hmm.
or the ingredients that you recommend for your brand owners?
Yeah, so I really have to first tap into what the indie brand or the small brand owner wants. Sometimes I'll be so passionate about sustainability or green chemistry or biodegradability, and sometimes the brand owner just doesn't care about that. So I have to figure out what exactly they're looking for. I do have a few like eco cautious brand owners who are looking for that sustainability route, and sustainability doesn't just stop with raw materials. That could also mean your packaging, of course. That could also mean the manufacturer. So when it comes to manufacturing, there's a process called carbon footprint. And we, as manufacturers, don't want to produce a lot of carbon when it comes to just processing in general. We don't want to make sure we're polluting the environment, whatever that looks like, but you still got to get a number of units out the door. So there's so many different like ways that now the chemist can say, hey, if we lower the batch cycle time by using eco-friendly, eco-conscious, sustainable, cold process ingredients, then we are going to help reduce the carbon footprint for manufacturers. So that's like my passion right now when it comes to sustainability, when it comes to green chemistry and utilizing like cold process ingredients. So think about like Neutrogena's Hydro Boost, or think of like your gel creams, like your those creams that like had that gel technology, is very cooling on the skin, whatever that looks like. Typically, or what a chemist would do is they would create a technology or a chemistry called cold process emulsion technology. And they would use a product that can be included in the formulation and do not have to use heat. When you don't use heat, that's another source of reducing the carbon footprint.
Mhm.
So now you're really practicing sustainability when it comes to both the formulation and manufacturing. So I see that as a big trend right now. Every time I talk to raw material suppliers, they're always showing me cold process technologies because it is on trend. And I will say also, my Master of Science capstone project was on biodegradability when it comes to the difference between natural alternatives to microplastics. So
Mm-hmm.
like your jojoba beads or your silica beads or your bamboo strawberry seeds, those are different ways you can help with sustainability as well. So instead of using microplastics, which I know microplastics are banned, but at the
Mm-hmm.
time when we were still using microplastics, they were being flushed down into the pipes, into the sewer, and then, of course, eventually into the ocean. And that was a way for cosmetic formulators to say, hey, let's create a natural alternative to those microplastics because now they're biodegradable. Now they're
Mm-hmm.
able to degrade naturally
Yeah.
and not get choked by turtles or get choked by fish or whatever that looks like. So it really started off with the natural alternatives to the microplastics, and now it's going into the not I won't say the bigger picture, but the bigger picture for the brand owner when it comes to manufacturing. Now we can use cold process technologies instead of the hot process. So that way we can reduce the carbon footprint and also reduce the batch cycle time for the manufacturer.
Oh, wait, guys, sustainability is so broad and is so many
Yes.
aspects to look at and consider, and one of the questions I always ask brands, and this seems like what you mentioned earlier, is what does sustainability mean to you in your brand? What is the
Mhm.
impact it will have on your end consumer?
Yes.
Because some brand owners like, I don't need any of that. I don't need it.
Mm-mm.
This
No.
I want what I want, and that's fine, and that's perfectly fine.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with it. There's plenty of brands that are not focused on sustainability that are on shelves. And some
Right.
brands are like, I want everything sustainable. But I'm like,
Right.
okay, if you do it sustainable, one of the episodes I did with Rachel Hassel, we talked about what are the two non-negotiables that you want for
Mm-hmm.
your brand. And when it comes to sustainability, some brands like I want sustainable formulations or ingredients, sustainable packaging, sustainable operations or
Right.
manufacturing, but
Right.
they want the Dom Perignon, but may only have Andre budget. Nothing wrong with that. But what is the first thing within sustainability we can focus on now to then
Mhm.
iterate to incorporate the second element and then
Right.
the third? So it's always going to be evolution, but at the end of the day, understand what sustainability means to you, your brand, and the impact it has on your end consumer. So
Right.
I
Right.
appreciate you sharing that example because there's
Yeah.
so many things around sustainability, from various
Yeah.
business sectors that we have to
So
look at.
many, and even down to like again the packaging. I'm starting to see more pouches. I'm starting to see more waterless products that are now
Hmm.
like solid form. I'm starting to see a lot more on the packaging side as well when it comes to sustainability. I love the concept of airless pumps and having the inserts for those airless. I just love that concept.
Yes.
And I told myself when I have my own brand one day, when it comes to Cindy J actually selling skincare products, that I would definitely go that route for sure.
Oh yeah, I love a good airless pump. Okay, it
Yeah.
is iconic. It's sleek, luxe. Oh, I'm with
Mhm.
it. So when you're ready, let's talk.
Let's
And
talk.
yeah, we're gonna talk.
Yes.
So last question for you, because we talked about the importance of formula ownership and the difference of going own route versus private label. We've talked about sustainability. We've talked about the process at CDJ Labs.
Mhm.
What is the biggest misconception brands have when it comes to creating their own formulas?
Ooh, that's a tough one. The biggest misconception I would say is on top of, because we've already talked about timing. So
Hmm.
that's always the biggest thing. But from a technicality standpoint, the biggest misconception when it comes to product development is the testing phase for sure.
Mm.
It's especially consumer evaluation. Some people feel as though they don't need consumer evaluation, and yeah, it's the conversations that I have, Megan. I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's not like, of course, when it comes to samples, we have to implicate a charge with those samples. And I don't want them to think that we're just trying to implicate that charge. No,
Right.
we're really looking out for your best interest. We had a brand that we worked with a few years ago. We created a shampoo that is really for naturalistas. It's not really for relaxed hair. And they created their target audience based on natural, but a lot of their consumer base had relaxed hair. So they
Mm.
didn't resonate that message to the young ladies with relaxed hair. So the people with relaxed hair didn't like the shampoo whatsoever. And it's because they didn't do consumer evaluation on their consumer base.
Mm.
Typically, we say we have a target audience, but you have to know the difference between your target audience and your consumer base. And if your consumer base is they love your products, but are they really your target audience for your new product that you're looking to produce? Are you
Mm.
solving the pain points of that consumer base, or are you solving the pain points of your target audience? And when you determine those 2 points, then you can create your messaging. You can create your marketing messaging. You can create different marketing strategies within that. But if you don't do the consumer evaluation test with your chemist, you're not going to know if it really worked or if it didn't. So I would say that's the biggest misconception. And it's not even stability testing anymore because it used to be stability testing. I used to say, hey, you had the option of either doing stability testing or not doing stability testing. But now I just say, no, you have to do stability testing when you're working with Cindy J. And people are just receptive of it. They're like, thank you so much for letting me know about stability testing. Now I think I'm going to do consumer evaluation testing as a part of that package as well, because I do not want them to get in the mindset that, okay, if I do consumer testing or consumer evaluation testing only on myself and my friends and family, then I know it's going to work. And that's the biggest misconception. Biggest.
Oh, that's a whole masterclass right there. So,
Yes.
whole masterclass. So,
Yes.
guys, if Cynthia mentioned a whole lot in our episode, and this is just a tidbit because she is a wealth of knowledge. Her network is phenomenal. She's part of
Thank
the, she has her organization. So, she is really about offering value and the solutions to the brands that she works with. And so, if you ever thought about creating your own proprietary formula with high efficacy formulations that will resonate with your target audience, not just
you.
your consumer base,
Yeah.
and ready to invest into testing and compliance, make sure you do connect with Cynthia and her lab at Cindy J Labs. They are going to make sure they have everything for you from branding, marketing, R&D, formulations, iterations, approvals, testing,
I
you
love
name it, they can
it.
do it on the formulation side as
Yeah.
well. So make sure you do get in contact with her and her company. And her information is down in the show notes for you all. And so, Cynthia, thank you so much for sharing this. We're going to go ahead and get into some fun, fast facts about our powerhouse for
Ooh,
today during our power round. So, if
oh,
you've been rocking with us, you know we do a featured power round for each of our powerhouses, which is 90 seconds of fun, fast facts. She's going to take a sip of juice as she gears up for this lightning speed round. So, the fun facts that she shared with us is that she used to be a dual athlete, basketball and volleyball, but probably should have said added cheerleader into that because she mentioned that at the beginning of the episode too. Okay, so she was the trifecta, and she's also traveled to Paris to see Queen Bee herself. Okay, so based on those fun facts, we're going to put 90 seconds on the clock and see how many questions she can answer
ooh,
around her fun facts.
all
Okay,
right.
so Cynthia, you ready, girl?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let me set my timer and let's go. Okay, so since you are a trifecta athlete, what is one lesson you learned that sticks with you to today?
Your team comes before your accomplishments.
Ooh, good one. Okay, so if you were playing a basketball round and you could pick your top celebrity teammates, who would you choose to be on the court or be courtside with you?
Oh, definitely Bow Wow. Like Mike was my number one. Bow Wow for sure. I would say Tiana Taylor. I would say Asia Wilson. She's going to be my center. I would say Rajon Rondo. He was
Okay,
my. I would say Kobe, but he's just going to be my
yeah.
person next to me. But my fifth person, I need a forward. I would say, actually, I would say Draymond Green.
Okay, okay.
Hmm.
And
Yeah,
Asia Wilson just launched her A1s too at the time of this recording. So if y'all have not watched the commercial, go ahead and watch it. Okay,
yeah.
okay. So what is the craziest thing you have done or did to prepare for the Beyonce concert?
The craziest thing that I've done to prepare, not craziest thing, but take a whole bunch of pictures, maybe
Okay.
like pictures, like abstract pictures of my outfit. I've never done that before.
Ooh,
Mhm.
okay.
Like the knee up, and then I had these white high knee boots, and I would just take a picture there. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Listen, it's all about the details, like baby.
Yes.
Okay. And I want you to name the song that this lyric came from. Okay. Which
Okay.
is I might be just a black Bill Gates in the making.
Formation.
Hey, check you out. Check you out.
I just
So,
might be a black Bill Gates in the making. That's my song.
hey, okay. That's the way to get us hype as business owners, right? I love it. So before we conclude, Cynthia, let everybody know how they can get in contact with you, and also about your Cindy J Lab Expo coming up in October.
So you of course can get in contact me through my email address. I'm very open book. You can always email me. We have a new email address called formulations at cindyjlabs.com. And of course, my website is cindyjlabs.com. And we also have our Instagram page at Cindy J Labs. And then also you can follow at the Cosmetic Concept on Instagram. And we are very excited to be hosting our second annual Cindy J Expo. I'm praying I can get Megan up here in Baltimore, but we'll talk after. But we had a our first expo last year in October, a huge success. And I want to say it just exceeded my expectations. We had so many different business owners come out as they became vendors. We also had a lot of attendees that wanted to learn more about product development. It was all centered around product development. We had product development panel speakers, we had master classes, a beauty entrepreneur panel, workshops. We had a massage therapist there. We had a skincare analyst there. It was so impactful. And we said we have to do this again this year. So, Megan, you're going to get the exclusive
Ooh,
on the theme because we had not shared our theme yet to anyone,
mm,
any platform, anywhere. So I figured, let me go ahead and when I saw this question, I said, I'm going to go ahead and give Megan the exclusive. So, the theme for this year for the Cindy J Expo is beauty in tech and manufacturing. So
ooh.
we're planning to get manufacturer speakers and also tech advisors in the beauty industry.
Ooh, thank you for this exclusive. I'm sorry, baby.
Oh, you're welcome.
Listen, excitement. So thank you so much for this exclusive and highlighting about your upcoming expo. We'll definitely be sure to link that information how people can purchase tickets in the show
Yes.
notes and also push it out to our newsletters as well. Because guys, I've heard people attend her expo and they talked about how impactful it was and
Mhm.
left there feeling full and ready
Yeah.
to start executing based upon what they mentioned and learned during the master classes and the full expo. So don't worry. You're going to have all this tea down in the show notes and also in our communications. And if you
Love it.
follow Cynthia, which you're going to after this episode, you'll be able to purchase those tickets and attend as well. So we're going to have to talk so I can come up there because I haven't been to Be More. So
I
give a
know.
visit.
Yes, yes. And you have to bring baby girl for sure. So I
Oh
can just put
yeah, oh yeah. She where I go, she go. So
yeah,
she learned the business firsthand.
right.
So I love that. Well, Cynthia, thank you so much for being our feature powerhouse on today's segment. Guys, thank you all for tuning in to today's segment. Make sure on all of your respective platforms, you do give us a 5-star rating to show me and the guests some love. And also make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe to our platforms and get information because we
Okay.
want to make sure that you have your own proprietary formula with Cindy J Labs, execute the
Mhm.
packaging with us here at GLC. And we are your full, right here, powerhouse team that you need to get information and get your products launched into the marketplace. So thank
Yeah.
y'all so much and see you on
Thank,
the next episode.
thank you.